All right, guys, so we got to talk about TYT's Anna Kasperian, who is undergoing a fascinating political transformation where she is rejecting the far left extremism. Even though she is a progressive, okay? She's a part of the far left, but the far left is so far gone that even some of the progressives who were on the same team as the far left, they are realizing how Cuckoo for Cocoa Puff's insane part of their party is, okay? And Anna Kasperian has spoke out on a variety of issues in which the left is going insane, like, for example, gender, race, crime, etc. Okay, and part of the reason why is because as a leftist living in California, she has been a victim of the Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs insane policies that the leftists are pushing in her state of California, okay, which is the leading state for leftism and progressivism in the union, okay, and she sees firsthand just how bad these policies are, okay, so she has received a whole lot of backlash for pushing back against the far left agenda. However, that has not stopped her from continuing to do so. Now she's speaking out about the far left agenda when it comes to immigration. And more specifically, she's calling out MSNBC, who is a leftist network that, in my opinion, sponsors domestic terrorism in this country, and AOC, who is also a far leftist, somebody that I believe TYT supported financially to run for Congress. But now, again, she's pushing back openly against AOC and the agenda of far left state media outlets like MSNBC when it comes to this issue of the border and illegal immigration, which they are mocking voters for being concerned about, okay? They're basically trying to say that it's not a real problem, that it's only a problem because Republicans are racist, and that there are no negative externalities when it comes to illegal immigration, okay? There's nothing really to be concerned about. It's just fear-mongering is made up, okay? You know what the left does. They are reality deniers, okay? And Anna Kasperian is going to speak out about this because, again, I think it's important that she is pushing back against the extremism on her side of the aisle. She seems to be, at the very least, a reasonable voice on the left. So without further ado, let's get into it.
They're increasingly, from the Tea Party on, they're voting on race. They're voting on this idea of an invasion of brown people over the border. They're just voting specifically on racial animus. At this stage, it isn't about economics.
No, which is why Trump killed the immigration bill.
Correct.
That's why. And because otherwise, he can't run against the other and brown people and people who don't look like him. I mean, if you look at some of these exit polls, I mean, I live in Virginia. Immigration was the number one issue. I mean, again, these could change in Virginia.
Well, Virginia does have a border with West Virginia. Very contested area.
Build the wall.
Yeah, so what you have there is a panel of liberal East Coast elite women who are openly mocking everyday average Americans who are concerned about illegal immigration, as if it's not a real problem. The only reason for you to be concerned about it is if you're racist, right? Because the right, they only vote based off race, which, again, I find to be fascinating because that's literally exactly what the left does, right? I mean, this is the party, okay, the left, the Democrat Party of black women, Latinx, gays, trans, right? The whole left is nothing but identity politics, okay? Nothing but identity politics, but yet they are accusing people on the right of voting based off of race. Again, it's fascinating how that works. A lot of the things that come from the left are nothing but projection. Again, this is the same party that literally chooses their vice presidential nominee, their press secretary, their Supreme Court judges, Biden administration officials. They choose people based off race. Regardless of whether or not they're qualified, they just put them in positions of power based off race. Okay, Joe Biden came out and said, yeah, I'm picking a black woman for VP. We're going to put a black woman as press secretary. We're going to put a black woman on the Supreme Court. But yet these are the people talking about how the GOP is a party that votes based off race. But yet their whole party is based off nothing but race and identity politics. The projection's out of control. But again, what you see here is the elitism that a vast majority of Americans can't stand. Okay? Coming from the media. 5 liberal millionaire women on television telling the average American that, oh, well, your concerns about illegal immigration and what could possibly happen and the negative consequences, yeah, it's unfounded, right? It's racist. You're just a racist for believing these things. Again, it's crazy, man. They openly just mock normal people.
Oh, Virginia does have a border with West Virginia.
Wow.
Very contested area. Build a wall.
As Super Tuesday election results trickled in last night, the liberal media intelligentsia provided a case study of what denial looks like. Don't be fooled by the ladies of MSNBC joining forces to jovially mock voters who express concern about the migrant crisis. Because if one looks closely enough, you can see that Wojak mask slipping. I suspect they're actually panicking about the vulnerabilities of the Democratic Party as we barrel toward the general election. They absolutely should be panicking, by the way. Unfortunately, instead of hearing voters out, the women of MSNBC have chosen ignorance and denial instead.
Every election cycle, particularly when there's a Democratic incumbent, we get reminded about the borders. And the borders become a thing again. And then if there's a Republican in office, we don't think about them anymore. Yeah. It's the deficit and the border. Like you make these things an issue. You make them into boogeymen. You make them into something that grabs you from under the bed at night as soon as you wake up. As long as there's a Democratic incumbent to blame on it, you make sure that nothing's ever done to fix either. And then you hope that people stop talking about them once you've got a Republican in office.
Now, look, I'm sure that there have been many examples of political opponents to Democrats exaggerating claims of immigration, but this ain't it. There's very clearly a migrant crisis.
Okay, we've had over 10 million come in since Biden took office, probably more, right? I think 10 million is on the low end. I wouldn't be surprised if we've had 20, 30 million illegals, okay, including the ones that are unaccounted for. So to try to pretend like this crisis is not a real crisis, again, it shows you how out of touch these people really are, right? They're not in line with the everyday average American. They are reality deniers. But again, a lot of it is really just propaganda for the Democrat Party, right? They deny reality for the Democrat Party. They deny that biology is real, okay? They deny that crime is real. They deny illegal immigration. They deny inflation. Okay, they deny all these things. Anything that disagrees with the Biden narrative, they just deny it. Oh, it doesn't exist. You're making it up, right? You're making it up.
In December alone, 300,000 people crossed the border in just 1 month. And there are local communities who have been really struggling to appropriately respond to the influx of migrants who have arrived into their cities. And look, for viewers who have convinced themselves that the denial demonstrated by the gaggle of gals on MSNBC is in no way indicative of progressives, I have unfortunate news for you.
The idea that Republicans, in order to win an election, say we need to hermetically seal the border when they know that that is economic self-sabotage to the US economy. And they are saying, let's do it anyway, while ginning up this false narrative about this being a crisis. And there is not only no moral calculation, there is no economic calculation, there is no logical calculation, there is only a political calculation. And that political calculation is we are going to keep whining about it. Mm-hmm. We are going to keep pretending this is a crisis.
Wow. Incredible stuff. Absolutely incredible. Again, shout out to Anna Kasperian for calling out the far left extremism, because that's what that is, right? I mean, just the denial of anything negative about far left policies, again, is a serious problem with the Democrats, okay? Because that is what the Democrat Party is. Okay, that's what they are. They are where Joy Reid, Rachel Maddow, and all the other cackling hens on MSNBC plus AOC are. That's where the Democrat Party's at, right? That's where they're at. So when somebody like Anna Kasperian can see it, you know it's a problem, because she's on the far left too. At one point, she was in that same category with those cackling hens, right? Pushing this type of nonsense. But for her, it seems as if she's not getting paid enough at TYT to be able to pay her way out of not having to deal with the negative consequences of far left extremism, right? So she's had to experience it. She's had to live in it. Okay, she knows that this is actually happening. This is a reality, and that this can have very bad consequences And I think this is why she's speaking out about it, okay? Because she's had to deal with it when it comes to crime, when it comes to gender, and now you talk about immigration. Again, you're seeing an evolution here from Anna that is really something to be respected, right? I really do respect it because it's hard to speak out against the extremes of your side of the aisle. It really is.
Pretending that this is a crisis. Look, I'm sad to say that Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is wrong. What's really unsettling is that she should know there's a migrant crisis. After all, she represents a district in New York where local officials have struggled to find shelter for the 171,000 plus migrants who arrived in the city recently. AOC herself addressed the migrant crisis just last September in front of the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City. Now you tell me if this doesn't look like a crisis to you.
Increase federal resources to cities and municipalities dealing with this issue. The second is to allow for work authorizations so that the folks in here can get to work and start supporting themselves as soon as possible. They are prevented from getting jobs, they are prevented from employment, and that is part of the strain on our public systems.
Yeah, barriers for who? For who? For us? For the United States? No, you come down. You're complicit in destroying our city. You come down, you own breaker. You never go to sleep at night. Hey, but come here. Yeah, I got you. You think you're so special?
Look, I'm sure the angry individuals in that video will just be brushed off as deranged right-wing lunatics who were sent there to harass AOC and give the false impression, of course, that people are worked up about our broken immigration system, right? If you think that, you're also wrong, but that's okay. Because anecdotal evidence is oftentimes extremely misleading. So let's actually take a step back and take a broader look at broad public opinion in New York. For example, a Quinnipiac University poll just last September found that 62% of voters said that they agreed with New York City Mayor Eric Adams' statement from September, where he said that an influx of migrants will destroy the city. I really hate the framing of that question because it makes it seem like there's something inherently negative or nefarious about migrants, and there just isn't. Most of these people came to America to work hard and build better lives for themselves and their families.
Yeah, but a lot of them taking advantage of the system though, right? And hey, at the end of the day, I don't blame them for trying to come here, but you can't take advantage of the system. You can't skip the line, right? I mean, there are other people who are trying to come the right way, who did come the right way, where we are skipping them for people who decided to come here illegally. Okay, so I mean, that's not to say that, a vast majority of these people are, bad. I don't think they're bad. I think a vast majority of them are good. Okay, and they probably will work hard and contribute positive to our society. However, they have to come in legally and they have to get to the back of the line, right? They have to get to the back of the line. So, I mean, for me personally to, say that, well, they're hardworking Americans and there's nothing, inherently wrong with migrants. Well, yes and no, right? Yes and no. I don't think that diversity to the extreme is a good thing, right? Too much diversity in anything, honestly, is bad, okay? Because diversity creates a lot of friction. And there's a lot of cultural friction in the United States right now because, quite honestly, this country's become too diverse, right? And people might think that's a controversial thing to say, but it's really not, okay? Because too much diversity creates mistrust, which makes it hard to get anything done, okay? It makes it hard to be on the same page when it comes to anything or pushing any type of agenda because, again, you have too many people of diverse backgrounds coming together who don't see eye to eye on enough things, okay, in order to move forward with anything, okay? Too many different interests. So, I think some diversity is good, but there is a point in which you have diminishing returns, like anything, okay? Too much of anything is not a good thing, right? And that includes diversity. And that's not something that we like to talk about too much in this country. But again, I think that, it really says something about why our politics are as polarized as they are right now is because, again, our country is too diverse to really get on board with any agenda, right? To really go anywhere. This is why we're in gridlock, because we can't agree on anything.
That takes tenacity, resilience, and the willingness to take risks that I admire. I'll always feel deep gratitude for having the privilege of growing up in Reseda, California, a community where the majority of residents consisted of Latino immigrants. They've enriched my life. I'm a child of immigrants myself, and we are a nation of immigrants. It's important to remember that. However, our immigration system is absolutely broken, and there are loopholes in our laws that human traffickers, unfortunately, are well versed in. These loopholes allow for the unmanageable influx of migrants into the country at a time when we don't have enough judges to process asylum claims. And this also comes at a time when we clearly have a shortage of housing for American citizens. According to that same Quinnipiac poll, a whopping 85% of New York City voters are either very concerned or somewhat concerned that the city will not be able to accommodate the surge in migrants who have sought sanctuary in the city and their right to worry. The federal government has sent the city some resources, but hundreds of millions of dollars apparently ain't enough. New York City has received about $140 million in federal funding for shelters, which is more than any other city not on the southwest border. The White House told New York Governor Kathy Hochul in August that it cannot send more federal assistance to the state, blaming congressional hurdles for the inability. So New York is left to pick up the tab, and it ain't cheap, as local leaders in Denver have recently learned. Here's Mayor Mike Johnson laying out some tough budgetary sacrifices Denver had to make recently to accommodate their growing migrant population.
We are announcing today we will make some changes both to our services at DMV and to our services on Parks and Rec. What that looks like for DMV is we are no longer taking vehicle registrations in person. We will move those to online. We will start rotating weekly DMV closures starting on March 4th. Our central spot at Tremont will stay open permanently, but our other satellite spots will rotate, closing 1 week at a time. We will have folks that are hourly workers that will have fewer hours. If we reduce your hours and you're an on-call worker, that's true. We will have on-call workers we won't hire for this summer. We would have hired otherwise. We will also have to make some hard decisions around reducing services for Parks and Rec heading into this summer and spring. That means beginning February 20th, we will reduce hours at our rec centers. Our regional centers that are 7 days will come back to 6 days. Those sites that are 6 days will stay at 6 days, but will reduce hours. We are planning for the entire 2024 budget, so we believe we have to make it through this entire year. And so these changes will be in effect until we can get back to a balanced budget. We think it will take us the 2024 year.
Not good. I think we can all agree that economic instability and growing wealth inequality has led to growing rage in America. I certainly feel it. So when Americans start seeing cuts to programs in their communities to house migrants instead, honestly, I can understand their frustration, even if it doesn't always manifest in the healthiest ways. Tensions have been simmering within the Black community in Chicago, for instance. Much of their fury has been directed at progressive Mayor Brandon Johnson, who has mostly responded to the crisis by being as welcoming to migrants as he can be. The kindness has been costly to both the city and his political career. In an attempt to be transparent with voters in Chicago and Illinois, the Comptroller's Office for the state of Illinois has published a website that discloses the total amount spent on the migrant crisis by taxpayers. So if you take a look at this is from the website itself. From November 1st of last year to March 5th of this year, state expenditures total more than $31,200,000. It's a lot of money. It's also just the tip of the iceberg. The governor, J.D. Pritzker, has pledged around $182 million in state funds for Chicago, while Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle has committed up to $70 million more in a joint funding plan to ensure migrants sent to the city from Texas have access to wraparound services and health care. Those funds come on top of the state committing $160 million in November to undocumented immigrants for welcome, shelter, and independence. That commitment was in addition to $478 million the state has spent since the start of the response, according to the governor's office. And obviously those funds include both the state's resources and some of the federal money that's been sent to Illinois to grapple with the migrant crisis.
Yeah, so all in all, right, we're talking about probably $1 billion in counting. But again, if you listen to AOC and the Cackling Hens on MSNBC, state-sponsored media, television, that doesn't exist, right? They're laughing at voters who are pissed off about their tax dollars, their hard-earned tax dollars, going towards taking care of people who didn't pay into the system and that are not American citizens. And again, this is why people on the left are out of touch, right? This is why I think that Trump is doing so well in the polls. This is why I think that Democrats are struggling so much in the polls. And I'm just hoping that it all shows up on election day, okay, in the results, right? When people go to vote, they actually vote based off how they're feeling, because the polls are saying that, well, people aren't feeling good about this crisis, okay? And, you know, when you listen to people like Reid and, you know, Rachel Maddow and all the others, you know, laugh at your concerns, when your concerns are real, it should motivate you more to go to the polls to vote out the Democrats, right? To make them regret mocking you and laughing at you for being concerned about what is a real crisis. So, hey, I think it does say a lot that you have Anna Kasperian speaking out about this, who was a progressive or is a progressive. I mean, she still is a progressive. When somebody like her can see how far gone MSNBC is, or somebody like AOC is, you know that you've gone batshit crazy. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.